A naked man has little to no influence on society. In clothes like this, you step out and you know that you're going to turn heads. You know that you're going to create an impression of a person who cares deeply about the way they look and has a finer eye for detail. And, that seems to be the Bombay Shirt Company way. What I really love about these clothes, and I really mean this, is this looks like a man has walked into the room. I like that. It's nice.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me. Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. The trade deal India is negotiating with the United States is stuck over India's red lines to do with importing genetically modified food and dairy products from America. So today we discuss and analyze those red lines. Are they insurmountable, or are they an obstruction India is willfully creating which can easily be got around? Those are the key issues I shall discuss today with the former chairman of the Commission for Agricultural Costs and Prices and presently distinguished professor at ICRIER, Ashok Gulati. Professor Gulati, I want to focus this interview on India's alleged red lines in negotiating a trade agreement with America. First, India refuses to buy American genetically modified soya and corn on the grounds that India does not import or grow genetically modified foods. But Indian cotton is genetically modified. So is this a case of double standards or possibly hypocrisy?
Well, from the government point of view, cotton, so-called, is not for human consumption. But the cotton seed is very much in our food system. It is being fed to the cattle, to the poultry industry as well, and cottonseed oil is actually being sold in every third shop, grocery shop in Gujarat. Easily you can get it for human consumption. So if you look from that point of view, that GM crop, is it in our food system or not? It is in our food system through the feed material and the oil material. So from that angle, if you see that GM corn or GM soya will not be allowed, then strictly it's not very consistent with what is happening on the ground.
It's double standards.
Well, you can call it double standard. I'll call it inconsistent, whichever the way you want to put it.
In that answer that you gave me, you made some very important points. I'd like to elaborate on them for the audience because I think the audience should understand those points more fully.
Mm-hmm.
India won't even agree to import GM corn from America for use as feed for poultry and animals.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you've just told me that GM cotton seeds are used as feed. So what's the difference between using GM corn as feed for poultry and animals and using GM cotton seeds as feed for poultry and animals? It's the same thing.
It's the same thing. Scientifically, there is hardly any difference. So it's the feed material, and it has more or less the same characteristics. And in fact, there were years in the past, I think 3 or 4 years back, we have imported GM corn feed and soya feed. We have imported when we were short from our domestic production.
What year would that be, sir, when we imported
I
GM soya and GM corn feed?
I think it was 3 or 4 years back. Exact. I'll have to check on that, but it's very recent, just 3 years back.
But this is very important. If 3 or 4 years ago we imported GM corn and GM soya as feed for poultry and animals, if we did it once, we can do it again.
Yeah, but the government stand would be, if we import feed material in crushed form, that is one part, will it enter into the food chain for humans? That little bit risk or question mark remains. But that can easily be overcome. I do feel that if you are inclined to do a trade deal, and if they are insisting on that, then you have to find a via media. Ethanol is, for example, one good example where corn can go. We are putting 5 million tons of rice in ethanol, which is a disaster because rice is a very, very water intensive crop. And much of our ethanol is coming from sugarcane, which again is a very water intensive crop. So if you want to save your water, you could have gone in for corn for ethanol. And you can say only ethanol firms are allowed to import.
But the truth, as you pointed out in an answer a moment ago,
Mhm.
is that if GM cotton seeds are being used as feed for poultry and animals,
Mhm.
then GM has already entered the food chain.
Yes, it is very much.
And therefore, if
Mhm.
GM cotton seeds can be used as feed for poultry and animals, so can GM corn. There's no
Yes,
distinction.
yes, as far as science is concerned, no problem.
But you made an even more important point.
Mhm.
It's not just that GM cotton seeds are being used for feed for animals and poultry in India. You've also told me that GM cotton seeds are being used to make cooking oil, which is
Mhm.
fairly widely used and available in Gujarat.
Yes, very much. Every third grocery shop will have it. Mhm.
So that cooking oil is directly being used in the
Mhm.
food chain for human beings.
Yes, very much.
So GM cotton seeds, and I'm underlining this because I think it's a fundamentally important point. GM cotton seeds are being used to make cooking oil, which is being widely sold in Gujarat, and people are eating it. And the concern that we have about GM corn entering the food chain is completely undermined by the fact that GM cotton seeds have entered the food chain and in the shape and form of cooking oil.
Long back, 20 years back.
20 years ago.
2002 onwards, it was the vision of Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee. He took a bold decision in 2002 to introduce the first GM crop in the country, namely BT cotton. And our production of cotton at that time was 13 million bales. Within 11, 12 years, by 12, 13, our production jumped to 39 million bales, 300% up. 13 to 39 million bales. It was a bigger revolution than even Green Revolution. But that was on the cotton side, and the seed is very much used for animal feed, poultry feed, and the oil extracted from the seed. Two-third weight is of the seed in the cotton ball. One-third is lint, and two-third is seed. So seed is very much in our food chain of oil as well as feed material for since 2002.
I'm going to sum up what you've told me.
Mhm.
GM cotton has been used in India for 20 years from the time of Atal Bihari Vajpayee.
Yes,
GM cotton seeds are being used as feed for animal and poultry for at least a decade, maybe longer.
yes,
GM cotton seeds are being used to make cooking oil, which is, as you said, available in every third grocery store in Gujarat.
yes,
And that presumably has been happening for also a decade or longer.
yes, longer. Mhm.
Then let me repeat my original question. This is surely double standards.
Well, it is inconsistent. The stand on GM corn or GM soya is not consistent with GM as a feed material, definitely not consistent with what is on the ground. And let me give you a little flavor. China imports 110 million tons of soya, which is all GM. 110 million tons of soya, and also corn, about 20 million tons or so. So it's for the poultry feed or for their swine population that they have. 76 countries grow GM crops in the world. More than 200 million hectares is under GM crops on the world. GM corn in USA has a productivity of about 11 tons per hectare. Our productivity of non-GM corn is 3.5 tons per hectare. That's the difference of new technology.
But you made another very important point. India is clearly an isolated country in the attitude it's taken over GM crops entering the food chain, whether as feed for poultry and animals or whether directly as cooking oil. 76 countries grow GM crops.
Yes.
They're clearly not stupid and they're clearly not out to kill their people.
Well, USA people have not died. They have been consuming for more than 25 years GM
There you
corn.
are.
When you and me go to US, we consume American corn and that's all GM.
There you are. When we go to America, we consume American corn and it is all GM and it does
Yes.
have no adverse effect whatsoever.
For the last 25 years, at least.
Let me use the phrase you prefer to double standards, inconsistent.
Yeah.
There is no logic at all behind this inconsistent position. It's inexplicable.
It's no scientific logic, it's only ideology.
Only ideology.
Yeah. Well, it's your choice. You don't want to consume today if anything that is fertilized with the chemical fertilizers and you want to have only organic, it's your choice. But you cannot feed the country with organic. The new technology requires more of fertilization, chemical, and all that, which has its own side effects, but you have to feed the people.
There's another point. Not only is this inconsistent, not only does it have no scientific logic behind it, not only is it just ideology and nothing more, but it is also very hard to defend rationally.
Yep.
You agree?
The Genetic Engineering Approval Committee has approved our own genetically modified mustard, but we have not released that. What is it? So the scientific body has clarified that there is no danger, safety checks have been done. It takes almost 10 years to develop a variety and then do all the safety checks. And they have already done that, and still it is not being released. Our next door neighbor, Bangladesh, has adopted BT brinjal, which is developed in India, but they are adopting it. But in India, we are not allowed.
This is even more bizarre. BT brinjal is developed in India. We are not allowed to grow it. We can't eat it. Bangladesh next door has taken the seeds from India and is growing it and eating it and thriving on it.
And then, God knows, illegally, it may have come already to West Bengal. Who knows?
All right,
Because
Professor
our
Gulati.
governance system is so poor.
I think we've knocked, and I'm using that word deliberately, I think we've knocked the government's position on not importing GM corn so severely that the audience will realize that whether you call it inconsistent or whether you call it what I'm calling it, double standards and hypocrisy, it's indefensible. Let's then come to American dairy products.
Yep.
Now, here, India doesn't want to import American dairy products because American cows are fed with what, to use a short form, I would call non-vegetarian feed. And that raises understandable religious concerns.
Yep.
Why can't India accept American dairy products that come from cows that are given vegetarian feed? You tell me that such dairy products, such dairy produce is easily available in America. You were there 10 or 12 days ago yourself. You were consuming American milk which comes from cows given vegetarian feed. Why can't India agree to buy that?
Yes, it's very much possible. I have been consuming in USA, as you rightly said, just 2 weeks back, I was there and we were consuming, which certifies that this is all fed on grass or grain, and no meat elements have been fed to the cows. So you can get a certificate from them that all this milk or cheese that is being sent is from the so-called the vegetarian cows and not non-vegetarian cows, if the religious feeling is there. Or if you can just brand it, whichever is the source, even on GM, you can put a stamp that this is from the GM corn or not, if people have concerns. So the question is, if you are inclined to make a deal, then there are issues which can be surmounted, right? But if you say no, not a single bushel can come from US, then you take all these non-tariff measures, this or that. But the fact is, we are importing agriculture goods worth $37 billion from the world, and only $2 billion is coming from US. We are exporting to US agriculture commodities worth almost $6 billion. So we have a surplus of $4 billion. So you can easily adjust and cool down the temperatures on both sides.
I'll expand into the additional points you've made in a moment's time, but let me go back and recap what you said about American dairy produce. First of all,
Yeah.
you can get in America, and therefore India can buy from America dairy
Yes.
produce from cows that are fed grain and grass and
Yes.
not fed what I keep calling non-vegetarian feed. It's
Yes.
available. If India wants it, can import it. You don't have to have a blanket ban on all
Yeah.
dairy products from America. You can say to the Americans, please send us milk, cheese, butter from cows fed with vegetarian feed. So
Yeah.
first of all, a blanket ban on American dairy products is a mistake. We can distinguish between the different types of feed and therefore distinguish between different types of milk and cheese. But
Yes.
the second very important point, you said we can even import milk, cheese, and other dairy products from cows that are fed on non-vegetarian feed if it's properly labeled. That way, the buyer in India will know what he or she is buying. They can choose for themselves whether they want it. The
Yeah.
label make it clear what the feed was.
Yeah, like when we take a cake here, so there is a green dot and a red dot, whether it has eggs or not. There is a clear-cut distinction. Any restaurant you go to, a green dot and red dot. So you can follow certain rules, depending if you are willing to. That's
The
the
green
basic.
dot and red dot example is a very good one, Professor Gulati, because it shows that we're used to A, making distinctions, and
Mhm.
B, the buyer is used to
Yeah,
recognizing those distinctions. There's
yeah,
no question of people being fooled or
yeah,
not knowing what they're buying.
yeah. Mhm.
So then to sum up at this point, and I'm going to repeatedly use my language, I know you won't agree with it, but when it comes to red lines to do with GM food,
Yeah.
as you say, those red lines are inconsistent. It
Mhm.
seems to me, and it will seem to the audience, they are actually hypocrisy and double standards. But the main thing is, we both agree those red
Yeah.
lines are difficult to rationally defend.
Yes. Mhm.
And when it comes to dairy products from
Mhm.
America,
Mhm.
the problem can be easily circumvented. Either
Yes.
insist that you will only buy from
Mhm.
cows that have been given vegetarian feed,
Mhm.
or label it
Mhm.
that people know what they're buying and can decide for themselves.
Right? Mhm.
One set of deadlines is inconsistent. The
Mhm.
other set of deadlines is unnecessary because you can easily find a way around the problem
Yep, if you want.
if you want. Tell me, why is it that the Indian government has created these indefensible red lines? What's the real explanation?
Well, you have to check with the government on those things. We have been somewhat over defensive on the agriculture sector. And there are reasons for that because a large proportion of our workforce, 46%, is dependent on agriculture. So the issues in agriculture go somewhat beyond just the commerce. It is a question of livelihood. I understand those things. But that does not mean that you don't do any trade in agriculture. As I rightly, just said, that we are importing $37 billion worth of agriculture goods from different countries. So are you not hurting those farmers, oilseed farmer? I mean, edible oil is the biggest import item. 55 to 60% of our edible oil consumption we are importing today. So are those not the farmers who are growing oil seeds and you are killing them? Pulses we are importing. So the pulse farmers are. So this, I think you need a better understanding of the trade policy. It's not that if you allow these things to come, there will be a flood of imports. No, our prices are very competitive. In fact, on milk, we will be many a times exporting S&P. We have been exporting. There were years when you could import because global prices quite go up and down. It can be $2,500 a ton and it can go to $5,000 a ton. We are very competitive at around $3,000 a ton. So if the prices are higher, we are exporting. If the prices are lower, you can import. You can build safety walls in terms of tariff quotas. That instead of having, for example, on milk, 60% tariff on skimmed milk powder that we have today, you can say, okay, a million ton can come at 10% tariff, but after that it will be 30%, 40% tariff. And you don't need more than that. At present, the tariffs are unduly high. There's a lot of water in tariffs today. We
You
don't
know,
need that.
it seems to me as I hear you speak, Professor Gulati, that
Mhm.
the real problem is absence of will. We are determined not to let in genetic food from America. We are
Mhm.
determined not to let in dairy produce from America.
Mhm.
We don't have the will to be imaginative and creative to find a solution. In Punjabi, they say there's a certain element of dheetpana here.
Well, I would say government needs to do its analysis. I have done 20 years analysis of prices. Okay. 80% of our agriculture is pretty competitive. We are exportable. You are putting export bans. So our agriculture is pretty competitive, except this oilseed sector, edible oil in particular for palm. But you are importing soya oil from USA, which is all GM.
But I'm going to underline that. We are importing soya oil from the USA, presumably for cooking purposes in
Of
India.
course.
And all soya in USA is GM.
And it is not labeled that it is GM soya.
So once again,
Yeah.
GM based cooking oil
Yeah.
has long been in the system of the food chain in India.
For 20 years.
There you are. Not only do we have oil from GM cotton seeds, which is sold, as you said, in every third grocery store in Gujarat, but we have GM soya oil coming directly from the United States, which are importing with our eyes wide open and is entering
Yeah.
the food chain. I mean, as we speak, we keep underlining
Yep.
the hypocrisy and double standards. I know you won't like that phrase, but you're making the point for me.
Scientifically, it is inconsistent. That's it. That's what my wording would be.
Let me raise two more points with you before I let you go.
Mhm.
I believe, as you pointed out yourself a moment ago, that India has a pretty substantial trade surplus in favor of India in terms of agricultural trade with America. I'm
Yeah.
told we sell around 6 billion worth to America. We buy from America around 2 billion.
Yes.
If in these circumstances,
That's agriculture.
agriculture,
Overall,
absolutely.
overall is much bigger surplus we
Absolutely.
have.
I'm talking strictly about agriculture.
Yeah.
We sell 6 billion worth of agricultural produce to America. We buy around 2 billion. The
Yes.
difference is around 4 billion.
Okay. That's right.
If in these circumstances America wants to sell more agricultural produce to India, isn't America justified in saying, please give us a chance to sell a bit more?
Sure. If I was American, that's what I would say. In fact, Diwali is coming, and you are going to be distributing almonds and eating almonds all over. 90% of the almonds being sold in the country are American, and they are coming at 13-14% duty. But walnut is 100% duty. So why don't you bring walnut also at 10%?
Absolutely. One other point. The overall trade surplus in America is some $41 billion in India's favor.
Yeah, that's right.
But by refusing to buy American corn and dairy products, isn't India running the risk of endangering the 41 billion surplus when there is actually no real need to do so?
In fact, our total exports are $86.5 billion of all goods, including agriculture. Out of that, they have exempted the electrical parts of that, electronics, this iPhones and pharmaceutical. So $60 billion worth of exports are under risk if they have to face 50% tariff. I would presume out of $60 billion which are facing this, almost $50 billion will be lost. So you are actually risking minimum 40 to 50 billion dollars worth of exports if you do not give them access to where they are insisting. As an American, I would insist on those things, that your tariff structure on agriculture, our trade weighted tariff is 64% plus. 64% compared to 4% in US. So naturally, the other side says, what is this going on?
So, what you're saying to me is that the American insistence of
Mhm.
wanting to sell GM corn and soya to India, or wanting to sell dairy produce to India, is perfectly understandable.
Any agriculture commodity, they are also asking for walnuts or cranberries and others, whatever. You know, question is 64% tariff versus 4%. When we are exporting our shrimp to US, the tariff there is 0 to 5%. And when they are exporting, let's say if they want to export corn, our tariff is 45%. Our skimmed milk powder tariff is 60%. And our walnuts are at 100%.
I,
Our cereal preparations are at 125 to 150%.
and this is simply not acceptable.
This is, I feel, the way we did rationalization on the industry side in 1991 and the way we have done GST reforms just a few days back. This is high time we also rationalize the duty structures in agriculture. They are overcautious. We don't need them. There is huge water in tariffs and they need to be brought down.
Professor Gulati, thank you very much for speaking so openly, so candidly, and as I would point out, so refreshingly truthfully to point out that the attitude that India has taken on genetic foods, to use your favorite phrases, is inconsistent, to use mine, it's double standards and hypocrisy. And the attitude that India has taken on American dairy produce is simply unnecessary, because there are very simple, straightforward ways of resolving the issue.
Yes, very much. And I do feel saints and scientists have a duty to speak the truth without any fear
Thank you very much
and
indeed.
any favor to anyone.
Take care. Stay
Thank
safe.
you. Thank you for having me on your show. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.
naked man has little to no influence on society. In clothes like this, you step out and you know that you're going to turn heads. You know that you're going to create an impression of a person who cares deeply about the way they look and has a finer eye for detail. And, that seems to be the Bombay Shirt Company way. What I really love about these clothes, and I really mean this, is this looks like a man has walked into the room. I like that. It's nice.